Tonight, the agenda is to talk about the human aura. I want to talk about scientific evidence for it, what the mystics say about it, and how we can use some of that information to apply it to our everyday life and to maybe even help the people in the world around us. In traditional terms, the aura is just the field of energy that surrounds the body. In mysticism, they teach that there's an aura surrounding everything. This aura usually radiates in a pattern based on the chakra system. And I did a video last week about the chakra system. So when I'm done with this one, I will plug that one in the comments. A lot of people don't even believe in them because they've never seen them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that even if you don't see them, you can definitely feel them. I think we've all been in a situation where we walked into a room and we felt the energy. And most of us understand that even without any words being said to another person, sometimes you can sense their energy. Modern science has a lot of evidence surrounding the potential existence of the aura, and we've all seen them depicted in art throughout history, in all different types of art actually. Not just all living things, but everything emits an electromagnetic field. Most people are familiar with the Mythbusters experiments, where they showed that they can affect plants with their thoughts from a distance, and a few others that they did. There's also the experiments by Masaru Emoto, where he showed that his thoughts and his feelings can affect the structure of water. I have a whole other video about that. But recently, there's an organization called the Institute of HeartMath that has been, for like the last 10, 15 years, has been really making some groundbreaking discoveries in this field. The Institute of HeartMath studies the human heart and the electrical components within it and surrounding it. And they've come up with all types of experiments to show and measure how you can detect the electromagnetic field of the human heart at least 3 feet away from it. And they've also found that when two human hearts get in a close vicinity, these hearts can synchronize. The electromagnetic frequency of these hearts can synchronize. They can become syncopated and start to match. That is the basis for homeostasis in human connection. I don't think there's any reason to believe that we can't amplify that. With these studies that the Institute of HeartMath has done, they've also learned that there's different coherent rhythms in the electromagnetic frequency that's emitted by the heart. And they've lined up different hundreds of people and studied hundreds of different participants to link their emotions with changes in that electromagnetic frequency. So for positive emotions, there's usually a smooth, coherent rhythm in these waves. And for depressed people or stressed out people, it's usually a more erratic, irregular frequency. Besides the Institute of HeartMath, which I would definitely recommend anyone looking them up. They have all types of interesting experiments on this stuff. But there's also a lady named Dr. Valerie Hunt from the University of California of Los Angeles. And she would measure the electromagnetic fields around the human body and correlate them with changes in emotional and physiological states. Just like the Institute of HeartMath, but she took these studies a little bit farther and she really mapped them out for people. I would really recommend anybody looking her up too. From the perspective of quantum physics, if you follow the standard model of particle physics, which is by far the most successful model in science, not just in physics, but in science in general. In the standard model of particle physics, from that perspective, that says that every single thing can be reduced down to some type of particle. Even forces, there's different particles for matter, and there's particles for forces. And we've talked about that. Some of them are still theoretical, but most of them have been well established and proven up to this point. But I want to talk about resonance in general, because like I said, from the view of the standard model of particle physics, every single thing is a particle. Every particle is creating a wave, and we're constantly surrounded by these waves. Every single thing around us is creating a wave in the fabric of space-time. at all times. We also know that the brain emits electromagnetic frequencies, and our neurons inside of our brain are actually producing electricity. Our neurons produce electricity. I think that's just fascinating. And so does our heart. So the heart emits these frequencies, the brain emits this frequency. Every single atom that we're made up of emits an electromagnetic frequency. That's pure science. I know most of us are well aware of the fact that we don't actually touch anything. When you try to touch something, you're actually separated by the electromagnetic field that's emitted from the atoms. We never actually touch anything because physically we're separated by these electromagnetic fields. But my argument would be that maybe we're not physically ever touching anything, but energetically we're always touching everything. If everything is emitting these electromagnetic fields, and these electromagnetic fields are constantly interfering with each other and affecting each other, then in a sense we're actually always touching everything. And that also is another way to explain how everything is connected in every type of way all throughout the universe, because we know that even in the vacuum of space, it's not empty. Scientists have never actually found a perfect vacuum. There's always something that's traveling through all space as we know it, not even including dark matter and dark energy, which comprises at least 75% of the entire universe, and we don't even know what it is. So my point is that we're all emitting frequencies at all times from all directions. And these frequencies have an effect on each other. If you have two guitars side by side, if you were to pluck the E string on one guitar, the E string on the other guitar will start to vibrate more subtly, but it will still, the E string that's aligned with that frequency of the one that you pluck, that will be the one that responds to it. It's also shown a lot with like tuning forks. People will bang a tuning fork and it'll make a frequency, and then the tuning fork right next to it will start to vibrate at that frequency. If you play two frequencies that synchronize with each other, they form what's called constructive interference. And if they're at the right frequency together and they match up correctly, because frequencies, they travel in waves. So if you have two different frequencies that are vibrating together, if these two waves meet at the same time, they'll make a bigger wave. And the same thing happens with sounds and even in water. If two waves meet at the same time at their peak, it's going to make one bigger wave. And that's called constructive interference. So understanding that is how we can get in tune with people around us and even objects around us, just by switching our frequency, our energy field. And I know a lot of this sounds like some wacky stuff, but it actually makes perfect sense. And even if you don't believe in auras from the mystical sense, even if you don't believe that they're like the essence of life or a human soul or anything, it's still good to understand that we emit these frequencies, whatever you believe the cause of them is. And then the other thing is, besides constructive interference, if you have two frequencies that are vibrating at different rates and they don't match up, they can cancel each other out, or it can just lessen the other one. So like I said, they travel in waves. If one wave that's at its peak meets with another one that's at a dip, it's going to cancel out that wave. Same thing happens with water, and the same thing happens with sound. And that's actually how noise canceling headphones work. The noise canceling headphones emit a frequency that causes destructive interference with the incoming frequency. That's constructive interference and destructive interference. So this shows how someone's vibe can kind of throw us off. And maybe that, that also explains why dogs seem to have a certain sense about people. I think we all understand that. I know lots and lots of people who have seen that firsthand and told me about that firsthand, and I've witnessed it too. It's funny how these animals seem to have an intuitive understanding. But the human aura, in ancient mysticism, it was always described in layers, different layers, and every layer is associated with a different chakra. And like I said, we talked about the chakras last week. So there's at least 7 layers to the human aura, but they're not static. They don't stay the same. They change, they shift. And that's why people talk about seeing different colors, because different chakras emit different colors. Now, the issue here with trying to see them is that the electromagnetic frequencies that humans emit with their bodies that we can measure with different instruments, those are in the ELF and the RF range, and that's extremely low frequency and radio frequency range, which are really far below the visible electromagnetic spectrum. So then the question is, how do we see them, and can people really see them? Well, there's definitely a lot of evidence to show that people can see them. There's a condition called synesthesia where different people can associate sounds with different colors. And this is a condition that some people are born with, some develop it in early childhood, whether through learning patterns or sometimes trauma. And then you can also develop this later on in life with different brain injuries and things like that. And it's not just sounds with colors, but that's one of the conditions. They can also ascribe different colors with different shapes or different letters. So these people will associate a letter or a word with a certain color. So they'll say, like, the letter A feels like a blue to them, which doesn't, like, logically that doesn't seem to make any sense to us, but through understanding these shifts of frequency, I think it makes perfect sense. A lot of them will say that different sounds evoke images or colors, so when they hear certain frequencies or songs, they literally see these lights or these shapes around them. They also, like, certain words can trigger tastes in their mouths. So the whole point of this condition is that we convert different certain sensations into other ones. And there's no reason to believe that we're not all capable of this. This is a condition, like I said, some people are born with it. Sometimes it's onset with trauma and conditioning or brain injury, but it just goes to show that we all have the potential to tap into that. And maybe people who are more sensitive to seeing the colors of the human aura have that same part of their brain that's active as these people that suffer from this condition or people that experience this condition. We can also see them through a process called Kirlian photography. And the basis for this was really discovered from Nikola Tesla around 1890. He experimented with energy fields and bioelectricity in a lot of different ways. But it didn't get popular. It wasn't really established until about 1939. People can literally take a picture of your aura for you. Now, again, whether or not that aura is your essential life force or what some would call prana, the universal flow of life energy, we could speculate and debate that all day. But Kirlian photography is a real thing, and people really can take a picture of the energy around your body, and it does show up as different colors. Check out my shop, get yourself a DK Dreamkeeper mug. Kirlian photography was established in 1939, didn't really gain popularity until the 60s and 70s, and still to this day you can find it. When I visit Salem once a year, there's usually different shops set up there where you can go get a picture of your aura taken. And the way that works is they just send high voltage electricity through the air, and they put a flat plate behind you, and this ionizes the air around you, and it emits this light. Although it's different at its basis, it is fundamentally the same thing as what we see when we're witnessing the aurora borealis. Actually, it's the same phenomenon. It's the ionization of the electrical particles in the air. The planet Earth also has its electromagnetic field that we're all aware of. And electromagnetism always works in polarity. It's dipolar, so you always have the north and the south of it. And the same thing goes for the human body. The top of the aura, it flows up through the crown chakra, and then it circles back down to the root chakra. in a shape that's called the torus, or the toroidal flow. The Earth's magnetic field also works in this toroidal flow, and magnets in general work in this with the north and the south charge. The toroidal flow is basically just a continuous closed loop motion that's shaped like a donut, or it can be a stretched donut, but the energy, or it could be fluids, because this is applied in everyday practical physics. The fluid or the energy flows from south to north in the center, and then out from the north to south on the outside, and it's almost a donut shape, and it's a self-sustaining, self-regulating, and self-balancing system. And the shape can get stretched and can be manipulated and can be amplified, but generally the energy still flows in that same direction, what's known as the toroidal flow. And also everything, the electromagnetic fields of every atom around us, they also flow in a toroidal motion. So this is expressed by literally everything. And like I said, everything has an aura, everything emits an electromagnetic field, not just living things, every single thing around us, especially some of the most powerful are crystals and gemstones. And this is where, I mean, I've got my obsidian quartz necklace here, but this is where a lot of people who say, you know, like gemstones are just rocks, and they might think it's a bunch of nonsense how people carry these and believe that they might have some sort of magical powers. But it's real. A prism can split the light of the electromagnetic spectrum. The different vibrational modes of a crystal depend on its atomic structure. And there's something called the Piso electronic property. Quartz is one of the crystals that has this property, and that's why it's so widely used. I mean, every cell phone has quartz in it, quartz crystal that they use, because of the way that it is manipulated and converts this electromagnetic energy with different pressures and different mechanical or electrical stress. These crystals generate electric charges, and that's why they use quartz in so much of the technology, the clocks, the phones, GPS, everything around us, really. So can people see auras without Kirlian photography? I think most people have experienced it, even if they don't realize it. So how can we see the aura? You know, what are the ways that people teach us to see them? You may see things every day but not actually notice them. I think when you start to set the intention to see the aura, you're more likely to notice it, just literally through the awareness and the intention. They say that you have to see the aura through the third eye. Now, I don't like the way that a lot of the mystics and the gurus put it, because you literally can't physically see something with your third eye. It's inside of your head. But the third eye can allow you to see things with your physical eyes that you otherwise probably wouldn't. And this is easy to understand once we talk about some of the neurochemistry behind it. Most of us know that the third eye, the pineal gland, produces DMT, and DMT is a highly potent psychoactive hallucinogenic that our brains produce it naturally, and they produce it mostly when we're dreaming, which is interesting. But also when, you know, people do different types of hallucinogenic drugs, or through breathing exercises and meditation, you can ramp up the DMT that's being produced by your pineal gland, and then it gets released out into your body. And DMT will cause people to see things that others would say are not there. People report seeing auras or extra colors when they're trying DMT. So it might sound crazy when the gurus tell you you have to open your third eye to see your chakra. The third eye is inside of the brain, the pineal gland, and you can't physically see anything with it, but it can allow your physical eyes to perceive things that they otherwise wouldn't, usually through releasing this DMT. So if you want to see the human aura, you just have to focus on the area where your third eye would be. And you can even close your eyes. And I have a bunch of videos on my page about visualization practices. I will definitely plug them in the comments when I'm done with all this. And those tips are great, and they can actually help you see the human aura faster. And I didn't even, that's not the reason why I made those tips, but simple things like one of them was to look at a light, a bright light, and then close your eyes, and you'll see the memory of that light on the inside of your eyelids. If you're having trouble with it, literally, just look at a bright light, and if you really still can't see it, you can gently rub your eyelids, and you'll start to see these almost kaleidoscope type of patterns on the inside of your eyelids. A great way to train your third eye, or to strengthen your third eye, is to close your eyes and try to manipulate the memory of these lights that you see. They're called phosphenes, like phosphorescence. It's the memory of the light that you can see when you close your eyes. Once you start to practice with these, you can start to shape them. You can start to change the color of them and manipulate them in different ways. You can even turn them into scenes and vivid imagery. And that's a great visualization practice. There's so many different meditations out there that you could try that help you activate your third eye chakra. But really just focusing and setting the intention to build the energy in that area is what can help you. And eventually you'll start to see these glowing orbs around people. One thing that these people were practicing, and that you can practice at home, is to literally just hold up your fingers up against a solid color background, usually a white background or maybe even a darker color. If you look at the space in between your fingers, but let your eyes go out of focus so that you're almost looking with your peripheral, or not focused but still looking in that direction, sometimes you'll start to see the area between your fingers look lighter and lighter, and you might even see what can look like a little white wisp of smoke or light in between your fingers. And that's one of the ways that I started out doing it. You can also hold your hand up against like a flat background and just look for that glowing around your hand. Sometimes you might have to focus just to a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right of your hand, or focus on it dead center and just let your eyes go out of focus, and you'll start to see it. And especially if you practice it a few times a day, it might take a few days, might even take a few weeks, but most people can train themselves to see this. I've never met anyone who's tried to see it over a period of time and failed. So I believe that anyone has the potential to. Now you might say we're creating hallucinations through the power of suggestion. And that's possible, but what are hallucinations? Maybe some hallucinations are just us tapping into some other reality. Because I mentioned it before, especially in my particles and waves video, we don't see the full electromagnetic spectrum. We know that there are waves and colors and forces that are all around us and that affect us and influence everything around us, that are beyond our visible spectrum. But with the right tools, we can see them, we can detect them, and we can measure them, and we can experience them. I think that our eyes are the ultimate adaptable tool. We just have to train them to see these things. You don't always have to look for human auras or try to look at your own hand or anything. But like for me personally, trees have a strong, steady aura. It's not as irregular as the human aura. It's not nearly as erratic as the human aura. Like trees and plants have a really beautiful, like majestic aura about them, especially like a big, strong, healthy tree. Very, very, very powerful, very beautiful. Not just trees, but literally everything. If you have gemstones or crystals at home, try to tune your mind to the crystalline structure of that crystal, and you can build a resonant frequency like we were talking about before. There's a flow of information. They also learned that the frequency of the heart directly affects the frequency of the brain and vice versa. So that may be why our emotions have such a strong impact on our physical state and our mental state. But of course, you can shift your mental state and feed back and influence the frequency of your heart as well through intention. And you can build these frequencies and you can amplify them just through focus and breath work and intention. It's crazy because last night I had this dream, and I don't talk about my dreams personally on these things, even though these are dream sessions. You know, the point here is not for me to talk about my dreams, but very interesting because last night I knew I had to go live, and I knew I was making this video about auras, and I was gonna go live on Sundays like I usually do. And I was sitting there thinking about how I have to get all my notes together and everything and make sure I got my information in order. And I wanted to go back through and just fact check everything that I was saying. And I was like, I'm not going to have my notes ready by Sunday because I've got so much to do. I got to pick up my girl from the airport and stuff, and I'm chopping wood and just cooking dinner for the kids, everything. Gave the dog a bath, like, you know. And so I had this dream last night, and I didn't realize it until like an hour or two after I woke up. It hit me when I was driving. But in this dream, it literally just showed me, it was me sitting here at my desk looking over my notes, and my notes were blank, and I was wondering where they all went. But I zoomed out, and that's when I remembered what my notes were about, was the human aura. And I started to see these glowing orbs around my house, around all the houses in the community. As I zoomed out, I saw them around all the trees, and then I just kept zooming out, and I saw that toroidal flow around the entire earth. And I could zoom in and out of different areas of the earth and see the way that these resonant frequencies were going into and out of form and affecting each other on all levels. And like and they were also being affected by the radio frequencies that were traveling around from the satellites and everything. If we can spread some of this information, make some of it more widespread about the human aura and how we can build it through intention and make it stronger, and how everything has an aura, we can definitely start to build a better society, in my opinion, through collective resonant frequencies. That's why they say loving your plants helps them grow better. But what if we can, what if we can set these intentions and expand a little bit on that, the way some of these mystics have been trying to do for thousands of years? Now that we have more scientific evidence and more scientific understanding and measurements to support it, like I said, you can argue all day whether or not you believe that these frequencies and this energy is our essential life force or the essence of consciousness. That, that's not scientifically proven. But what is scientifically proven is that we all have these fields, and that these fields can affect the people around us and everything around us. So I think it's powerful information. And also, like we talked about, constructive interference of waves and destructive interference. Electromagnetic energy is not all good, and it's also not bad. Those are not relevant adjectives to really use for it. Just like how we've talked about shadows and light and dark, and neither one of them are inherently positive or negative in the way that our modern human mind would like to understand them. Darkness is only negative in the sense that it's the lack of light. So it's negative of light, but it's not inherently bad. Darkness is necessary. Light is necessary. Too much darkness is a bad thing, but too much light is a bad thing as well. Too much light, too much sunlight will kill a plant. Everything needs the balance of light and darkness. And I talked about that in my shadows video, and I've been sharing that a lot. And some of you guys might be sick of hearing me say it, but it's necessary to recognize, because these frequencies, these electromagnetic frequencies, some people talk about positive frequencies and negative frequencies. And that's only a relative perspective you can take. But these frequencies just have wide range. And there's no positive or negative. There's only positive and negative in the sense that you have, this one thing and then a different thing, that they're different. So to separate the two, you can give them different adjectives, but they're just a range of frequencies. And my point is that a lot of the frequencies that are emitted by human technology and a lot of the radio waves that are traveling all around us that we're all aware of, but we don't see them. There's just massive amounts of information being transmitted all over the world, all around our bodies at all times. Some of these frequencies, they cause destructive interference, and there's been a lot of rising concern about man-made electromagnetic waves having a negative effect on us. Some people think it causes cancer or can cause increased anxiety, and we know very well that sound frequencies can have a strong effect on us psychologically and physically. A lot of man-made technology causes a lot of frequencies that are not in tune with the natural frequencies we experience, and this may be causing destructive interference with us. So the best way to combat that or to defend against that is to try to build and amplify our resonant frequencies together collectively, through good music and meditation and communication. The spoken word, especially vowels, hold a lot of power. Vowels actually create a toroidal shape, and it varies depending on the vowel. I'm going to do a whole separate video about that, but the spoken word holds a lot of energy. And the fact that we are transmitting these words all over the world and sharing them with so many groups of people, if we can set the intention to speak better and to think better collectively, and I think it has been happening for a long time, we can build this resonant frequency. And hopefully our constructive interference will cancel out a lot of those EMFs and radio frequencies that might be having a negative effect on us. And that is what I saw. That was the revelation I had from my dream. Different chakras represent different emotions and different personality types. Depending on the color of your aura, you can tell which chakra might be out of balance just by studying the colors of your aura. And that's why a lot of mystics, when they do aura readings for people, they might talk about the most prominent colors and which colors seem weak. And this is a direct reflection of how balanced that relative chakra is. And that's why white auras seem to be associated with the most enlightened beings throughout history. And it is shown in different art from all over the world. Not just Christian art either. It's also, it's seen in Buddhist art and ancient Egyptian art and in Greek, and even all the way back to Mesopotamia. They showed figures depicted that were surrounded by some sort of energy field, whatever you want to call it. If you feel like you've seen the aura, or if you can confirm that you've definitely felt it, hit me up in the comments, let me know. And if you would like more tips on how to see the aura, you can hit me up. We can give personalized tips, but also check out all of my visualization tips and tricks videos that I used to put up every Thursday. I have a video on sacred geometry and the nature of reality. It talks about a lot of shapes, which we talk about the merkaba. And in ancient Jewish mysticism, the merkaba is usually recognized as the shape of that energy that's surrounding the human body, also known as the chariot or the vessel that guides people from one world to the other. The chakra that's the most balanced will be the one that will mostly determine the color of your aura. What do I think about personal chemistry? Well, the big question that comes in with all of this is, and this is where scientists have their argument, what is the source of these frequencies? Are they emergent properties or are they fundamental properties? Is it our brain chemistry that directly determines our frequency, or is our frequency directly determining our brain chemistry? And even if you might agree that the two of them are affecting each other directly at this point, what is the more fundamental source? Didi, you said, DK, maybe in a future session we can talk about nonlinear fractal resonance. They say it can liquefy stone, right? I saw this in Ancient Aliens. They say that's how they built the megalithic structures. Yes. Electromagnetic waves do make sound. They make sound when they're strong enough to have a direct effect on the physical things around us, and that does happen. That's what the buzzing of a light is. I specifically was looking this up. Like, can electromagnetic frequencies be directly translated into sound? And they are all the time around us. We hear them. Of course, they need to be they need to be translated through some sort of physical medium, but they still have a directly correlating sound to them. So, which means that they make things vibrate, which means that they will cause they're causing some sort of resonance directly on the physical things all around us at all times. So there may be something to that. Chris, you said that, oh, frequency. Oh, you said the second one, you think that frequency determines brain chemistry. I agree, because like I mentioned, everything has a frequency. We're surrounded by frequencies at all times. So as we're being formed in the womb, we're already subjected to our mother's, obviously the frequency that's being emitted from her heart and everything around her, and then everything around her, and anyone that even comes close to her. So we're already being affected by these frequencies as we're forming our brain chemistry. So for the people that argue that these frequencies are an emergent property of our brain chemistry, or our body chemistry, it's not. I don't even think that you can't rule out the origin of frequency, predating brain chemistry. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, also, electromagnetic waves travel at the speed of light. There's a lot of arguments that, and it's true, obviously they can be affected and it can slow down depending on what medium they're traveling through, even in the air, the atmosphere, or through water, which they do travel through, but that affects the speed of them. Regardless, these waves that are being emitted from the heart and from the brain and from all parts of our body, these frequencies are traveling at about the speed of light. So it's a nearly, at least from our observable perspective, that's a nearly instantaneous effect. I believe that frequency is fundamental. I really do. Brain chemistry is a product of evolution, but it's all predated by frequency, and that's what's interesting, in all of the major origin stories throughout all major religions. It's they talk about the origins of the earth or the universe being either through sound or through vibration or movement, which movement, vibration is movement. So you know, in the beginning was the word, and, you know, God moved on the face of the water, or spirit moved on the face of the water. Regardless, in the beginning was the word, and the word is frequency, and that, you know, that wasn't the word, but words are frequencies. So yeah, and I do believe that if there is an emergent property, it's not the frequency, it is everything else. But I could be wrong. They say children are born with the ability to see auras. They can lose it if or when they're born. In the room, oh, if when they're born in the room there's an electric light on. Did you hear about that? Is there any logic in it? No, I've never heard that. Is there any logic in it? Uh, I don't see that. It's easy to see how over time we can lose the ability to see auras in general, but I don't know about if they're born with an electric light on, they'll instantly lose the ability to see them. No, honestly, I wouldn't believe that, because I mean, I've heard of and talked to, there's a lot of people out there that can see auras, or they claim they can. I know I can. I couldn't always, but a lot of people claim they've always been able to see them, and it's natural for them. Unless those people are just crazy and hallucinating or lying. If any of those people are telling the truth, then I would say that's probably not true, because just about everyone in the, you know, in modern days was born in a room with an electric light on. There's also like what they call frequency locking, and that's when two frequencies come into resonance together, and then even after they separate for whatever extended period of time, they will stay in resonance. This energy is what connects all of us, and if we can like collectively start to amplify these and build a resonant frequency between large groups of people, especially with the way that we can connect around the world like this, and if we can bring those frequencies into resonance with everything around us, you know, the plants, the animals, and ultimately the entire planet, and maybe even the entire universe, you know, that might be how we reach transcendence. I don't know. Or, you know, that might just be the best way to keep increasing life for us and everything around us, is through consciously building these resonant frequencies, so that we're causing constructive interference on a large scale instead of destructive interference. You said, still, what if we're all born with the ability to see auras, but the electric light is shortcutting some impulses, and the ones that still see the auras are the ones with stronger abilities? I guess maybe, but I would think that if that was the case, there would be an overwhelming amount of references and writings from before the time of electric lights. Then I would think that just everyone would always be seeing auras, and it would have been, I mean, maybe, I think it would have just been like everywhere, and it wouldn't even be debated these days. Then maybe not. Or is that information being suppressed? But no, I would think like, even, you know, like in just about every story and every book and everything, there would be a lot more mentions of that if everyone was just naturally born with that. Maybe they did. Witches, yeah, but the witches were the minority, right? Generally. So I'm saying, if it was everybody, and if it's electric lights that stop us from seeing them, then, you know, everybody would have still kept seeing them back then. You know, I think it's the I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I'd say just about the amount of people that used to be witches, or at least be accused of being witches or claim to be witches back then, were definitely the vast minority. And they killed every different human. Sure, they may have killed every different human, but if everybody was naturally born with the ability to see auras, then, I mean, you know, they all would have just been killing themselves then. What? I mean, I don't know. Like, it would have been, it's just, I think it would have been much more widespread. And it's not like the literature and the references to auras have lessened, have become less since the Industrial Revolution and modern electric lights. I mean, yes, they were definitely prominent in most religious and spiritual texts, but I mean, there's more books today than you could even imagine about the human aura and how to see it and work with it. It's not, and there's still a lot of people that claim to see these things and work with them. I don't know. You were just messing around, nothing logical. I mean, no, it's a good, actually, because I didn't think about that. I've never thought about that. And like, without thinking about it right off the top of my head, I mean, it sounds like there could be something to it, and maybe there is, but, the more I think about it, the more it's not adding up to me. Still, they might have been eliminated, maybe, but I still, like I said, unless people are just straight up lying, I still know people, like, personally, I know people who claim that they've been able to see them their entire life naturally. So maybe, I mean, they weren't all eliminated. I don't know. Or maybe just mostly silenced. I don't know. But there seems to be actually a decent amount. If you go to a place like Salem, you'll hear there's most of the people around there, that they all kind of join together in that city and talk about things like that all the time. Whatever small percentage of the population is, they all get concentrated in that one location. That's why I love Salem so much. And you can also go to Salem, and I've seen it. I never personally had it done. I talked about it earlier, where they can take a picture of your aura, through Kirlian photography. Oh, you were just asking yourself out loud. Yeah, no, it's a good thought. It's an interesting question. It really is. And I was talking about that before. Like, I had to sit through hundreds, literally hundreds of different YouTube videos. And I'm playing them while I'm driving, while I'm doing the dishes. Because I'm trying to definitely, like, freshen up and get as much information about this stuff as I can about the human aura. And there is so much nonsense. Like, literally, people say things with such conviction, and if you don't double check it or question it, then, like, they just get away with it. Good session, thank you. Yeah, it's been about 2.5 hours. I think I'm gonna call it a night. It's like 10:30 now. I started this. Yeah. I'm gonna call it a night. Yo, Chris, thanks for coming through, man. You guys could definitely check out the first hour, check out the replay if you want, or you could just wait till I edit it and add graphics to it, because that'll be better anyway, if you're just patient. But because I talked about everything we talked about and some other stuff, and thank you. Yo, I appreciate you guys so much. I will definitely keep everyone updated. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you, Didi. Thank you, Chris.